Father's Day.
Another positive drug test for Medina Spirit.
He finished first.
Medina Spirit has won the Kentucky Derby.
But a second test result has come back, and it shows Medina Spirit did have a prohibited substance in his system. That likely means the horse will be disqualified and the victory taken away. While that decision has not been officially confirmed, the horse's famous trainer Bob Baffert has been given a 2-year suspension from competing at the Derby racetrack at Churchill Downs. Steve Futterman, CBS News.
The markets closed up for the day. This is CBS News.
Dell Technologies summer sale event can save your business up to 45% on secure PCs built for business with Windows 10 Pro. Rise to the challenge. Call 877-ASK-DELL.
It's the perfect season for a powerful business upgrade with Dell Technologies Summer Sale Event. Save up to 45% on secure PCs built for business with Windows 10 Pro. You'll also find great savings on Dell servers, monitors, docks, and other accessories to help boost productivity. Plus, enjoy free shipping on everything. Do more with modern devices and Windows 10 Pro. Call 877-ASK-DELL for a Dell Technologies advisor who can help you find the right tech. That's 877-ASK-DELL for business specials during Dell's Summer Sale Event.
This week's Pro Basketball Update brought to you by Credit Karma. Some teams ready to move on, while others are going home. Next stop, the Eastern and Western Conference semifinals. And different from last year's playoff bubble, it's so nice to hear fans back in the arenas. No doubt it's going to make for some great viewing for the next couple of months. Right now, visit creditkarma.com/winmoney to open your free account and start winning instant karma. No purchase necessary. Exclusions and terms apply. See rules.
The coaching staff of a high school football team in Canton, Ohio, is in trouble.
McKinley High School football coach Watley Marcus and 7 assistant coaches have been suspended after a 17-year-old player who is Jewish was reportedly forced to eat a pepperoni pizza. Civil rights attorney Edward Gilbert is representing the student.
This just crosses a line. It's on every level. It's just wrong. Their religion is being disrespected.
Gilbert says the Jewish student who keeps kosher was forced to eat pork as a punishment for missing a weightlifting session. Jim Crisula, CBS News.
A new survey by Invisibly weighs how public sentiment of the CDC has changed over the pandemic. 39% of respondents in April said the agency is completely trustworthy compared to 29% in July 2020. 33% said in April the agency is completely untrustworthy compared to 23% last July. Wendy Gillette, CBS News.
Serving the entire Treasure Coast, Howard Insurance and Associates in Port St. Lucie offers a wide variety of insurance products, along with the very best customer service. Whether you're shopping for the best homeowners coverage at the most affordable value, contact Rudy Howard's team at Howard Insurance and Associates. If you need coverage for your vehicle, call Howard Insurance and Associates, 343-9878. That's 343-9878. Maybe you're planning to add a boat, motorcycle, or RV. Call Howard Insurance and Associates for your free quote at 343-9878 and get the coverage you need at a cost that will fit your budget. For home or business, auto or recreational vehicle, choose Howard Insurance and Associates, 600 Southwest Darwin Boulevard, Suite 206, Port St. Lucie. And for your free rate quote, call them at 343-9878, 343-9878.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. They're definitely not the everyday average run-of-the-mill statements that you hear on this station. And that's why we present proudly every Wednesday evening from Howard Insurance in Port St. Lucie, we present the African American Scene, hosted by Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. Wow, I got to tell you, I saw something this morning that just absolutely blew me away. In California, there was a mama bear. I don't know if you saw that. Did you see that?
Yeah, the little girl was worried about her dogs, and she pushes the mama bear off the wall.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Right. Folks, if you haven't seen it, you got to go out there and see this. The mama bear is walking with her cubs, and the dogs in the backyard come up and they're barking at the bear. And one little dog is jumping up on the wall, and in comes the little girl. She's a little teenage girl, and the bear looks like she's got one paw on the dog, and the girl comes up and pushes the bear off the wall. And I saw the interview with her mother and saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe she did that." But it was pure instinct. You could see.
Yeah, adrenaline.
She wasn't thinking at all. All she was trying to do was save her dog. And she could have got torn to shreds by that daggone bear.
One swipe of a bear paw can tear your face right off.
Exactly,
Big claws,
yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, so if you get a chance, go out there and see that. I think that's pretty interesting. I'll tell you, they had a program on ABC called The Knockout, which was a chronicle of Mike Tyson, and it was 2 parts. I watched a little bit of the first part, but I watched all of the second part last night. And I wasn't a huge Tyson fan, but he was something to behold when he hit the scene. But in the end, when I saw where he came from and what he became, I felt a little compassion for him, because he came from such a bad situation, and then he lost some of the people that were most influential in his life. But overall, right now, it looks like he's in a good spot because he got himself another wife. But is yet to be seen. But I'm not a huge Michael Tyson fan, but watching that was pretty interesting. It gave me a different look at him that I hadn't really looked at before. Let's talk about, I don't know, I'm sure you would have to be living in a cave to not have seen the information about Tulsa, the Tulsa Massacre in 1921. That's a subject for tonight. I'd like to know how many of you knew about the Tulsa Massacre?
Well, the media buried the story for a long time. It was not told. Nobody knew about it. And to see the pictures now and think, that happened then? That looks sort of like things that are happening these days, only on a much larger scale. But good grief, that was... What year was that again?
Forefathers refused to tell their own kin about it.
Wow.
It was... After watching that, if you have an opinion, please share your opinion with me about Tulsa. What I'd like to know mostly is, did you know about that? If you didn't know about that, should you have known about that? Because one of the controversies right now is conservatives are trying to prevent schools from teaching history, especially adverse history, because they want to make sure that everybody believes in American exceptionalism. And I do not believe in American exceptionalism. And even one of my great heroes, Obama, believes in American exceptionalism, but I do not believe in American exceptionalism. The number is 340-1590. I'd like to hear your thoughts about Tulsa. Topic number 2, African Americans in the military. We have fought in every war from the American Revolution till today, every single one. Some of you and your family weren't even in this country when we were fighting to defend the American ideal. And I have some feelings about that, I'll tell you. Topic number 3. What a true American looks like. And topic number 4. I've changed my mind about reparations. Again, if you want to comment on any of these topics, the phone number is 340-1590. Now, constantly, you've been told about police brutality. And some of you are offended by the protests of Black Lives Matter asking for a adjustment in policing for black people. If you saw the History Channel or some of the other channels like MSNBC that presented the story of Tulsa, the Tulsa massacre, as aptly put by the president, you know the police arrested 0 people. 0. Not one person got arrested in the Tulsa massacre. The cops handed out guns, ammunition, and made deputies of citizens to go out and kill and restrain African Americans. Now, that was in 1921. Here we are 100 years later, and we're still trying to deal with the issues about policing. 100 years later, and we're still trying to deal with the issues of policing. And in 1921, we saw the first gross injustice when it came to policing African Americans. And we got Winnie on line 1. Yes, Winnie.
I have that might be Barbara, like Wall Street. That's put me around the Rosewood.
Yes.
Right here in Florida.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know, a little bit of that massacre there, things like this here. Yeah, but that's bad. But, Black Lives Matter, I like Black Lives Matter protests and things like that. I like that. I like it. I don't have no problem with that. That's, things like that. People looking for a change and, equal justice and things like this here. What you had about, what is about that? Yeah, he was two things. Yeah, yesterday he went to court, federal. So what's that about, the federal court? What's that about?
What's that now?
Yeah, but I won't get the video George Floyd made. And he got they got a verdict. But he went to court yesterday, federal court.
Well, they gave him 30 years in prison. And the defense.
Yesterday, so you heard about it?
Well, what I heard today was they gave him 30 years, and the attorney for Chauvin is asking for probation. Now, I hope that doesn't happen, but his attorney's asking that.
His attorney asking for probation?
Yes, he just wants him to have probation because he has had no prior record.
Right.
And he said that he was inappropriately trained or something like that. So as a result of that, he feels that he should only have probation.
So he got 30 years.
Right now it's 30 years, so we'll see.
take it. We'll be talking.
Okay.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Winnie. Yeah, so what I want you guys to get out of this was, think about that. In 1921, the cops were totally unjust to black folks. They then actually put the black folks that didn't get burned up or shot in an internment situation. Imagine. Now, let's combine this with what I talked about last week. This is 1921, so some of these people had just left the vestiges of slavery and had come to make a new life for themselves and had done fairly well, and lo and behold, they were torn apart again. Now, what I want you to do, please, just think about what it would have been like for you to have left slavery like less than 50 years ago, come to a new place, get a fine job, create wealth, and then snatched from you again. So for some of those people, it is the second time they've had to start over from nothing. That's enough to want you to commit suicide, tell you the truth. That is suicidal. That's a suicidal situation. To have to go through that a second time. So, I mean, really think about it. From 1921 to 1863, that's how many years? 1921, 1863. That's 8. Was that 48 years, is it? No. Yes, it's 48 years. So 48, you can believe there was people who were in that community who had just emerged from slavery. Because not everybody, some of those people came prior to 1921, so to help build the town to where it was. That is, to me, when I sat down and I thought about the fact of what I talked about last week, and that you would have to go through that again, that is mind-numbing. I don't know how you would do it. Do you know how strong you have to be, Cliff, to go through that a second time? Jesus.
Well, it sure wouldn't do very much for what strength you had left after the first time.
Jesus, that's just that's unbelievable to me. Those folks had to go through that for a second time. In that short span of time, because I'm telling you, from 1921 to 1863, that's 48 years. That is like, wow, just amazing.
It's unthinkable now.
It really is. It is unthinkable. I would like, here's the other thing. What do you think our kids should be taught about this? This seems to be a really huge controversy here recently. They don't want children to learn about this history. And unfortunately, we've got that title that some of the Europeans gave us, the ugly American. And I think that's kind of why we get this title, because we like to portray ourselves in a light always above and beyond the fray, even when we have our own dirty laundry that is upon us. But I would like to know, do you think your kids, your grandkids, should be taught about Tulsa? My answer is yes. They need to know about this.
Well, the reason we study history is so that we can not allow it to happen again.
Correct.
And without history to show us what can happen, you know, we're just out there sort of just void of what's really going on out there.
Yeah.
And that's part of what's going on right now. Part of the reason is because you don't think these people have had resentment for 100 years now? It's justifiable, you know, to have a little resentment over that.
Well, what you have to understand is that you destroyed generational wealth.
Yeah.
I mean, generational wealth. Those people were really wealthy. They had hotels, they had movie theaters, they had doctor's offices, lawyers' offices. They had the whole 9 yards there. And that is wiped out in one fell swoop within 48 hours, gone.
Wow.
And they didn't get a dime. They got no insurance money, no nothing.
No big lawyers that could straighten everything out and get everybody some money for all the damages.
Nothing.
Wow.
They got nothing. Absolutely nothing. That to me is the ultimate sin, that they got that kind of damage, they received that kind of destruction, and they got absolutely nothing. Mind-boggling. And some of them had insurance policies, and insurance policies just wouldn't pay. They just would not pay. Because they were black people, they didn't deserve to be paid, I guess. That's the only thing I can think, but that's pretty crazy. But Jay, we got Jay on line one. What'd you say, Jay?
Hey, how you doing, man? Good evening to you and to your co-host.
Yes.
You know, I was thinking about my own life when I heard you talking about should that be taught? Should the youngsters today know what happened 100 years ago there in Oklahoma? I think it should be read. It should be taught in every textbook in every elementary school and every school, every public school in the country. I know private schools have different curriculum, and they don't want to they just teach what they want to teach, and they don't have to, but because it's not taxpayers not paying for the public school. I mean for the private schools. But I think that every public school in the nation, it should be this one, a curriculum that's about the history of this country. I teach my kids and my granddaughter especially. She's shocked when I tell her some of the stuff I went through growing up and what my relatives and mainly in the South and even in New York where my mother was born in Harlem, New York. They had redlining, talking about businesses and keeping black folks in poverty and not letting them move up to live the good life. Yeah, they had all kind of schemes. The banks wouldn't loan money to people living in Harlem because they didn't want them to prosper. And when they did, they had, they did anything, like they've been talking about it now. Like when appraisers check your house, a woman she was an interracial marriage. She had to let her husband be there when the appraiser came in, so she could they would get a decent price for the house they were trying to sell, so they can move up and buy a bigger house. If she was there, he would have gave them a lower rate.
Well, Jay,
instead of the house being worth $150,000, he probably would have told us it was only worth $120 or $110. And this was on I think it was on 60 Minutes not too long ago.
Yeah, Jay.
So it goes on. It goes on today. We could talk about what happened in Oklahoma, but it constantly goes on and on and on, and it's like the untold story. And when I brought that up to somebody on one of the local stations about redlining in Fort Pierce, he told me I didn't know what I was talking about, and I said, well, you just don't know. You trying to cover it up, and you just don't want to deal with it. You don't want people to know what happened, and I think it's kind of sad that a lot of my people don't know about that. And I said, you should come up off that and educate everybody. and let everybody know what's going on, because it happens. It happens all over. And I witnessed it myself, in my family. They tell me all about it all the time.
Jay,
and so,
right there in Long Island,
yeah,
Levittown, New York.
Right.
When Levitt built that development, it was part of the code. And that development was built for the veterans that was coming back from World War II. Black men could not live there.
That's true, and that was part of the deal, because the developer, the Levitt, the guy the developer, he got money from the government, from the U.S. government for the veterans, so they wouldn't have to pay, no down payment and all that, all the perks. That was like the first time they did anything for the vets, and it was like, that's why they call it the greatest generation, because they were able to go to school on the GI Bill, they were able to get houses pretty cheap on the GI Bill, all of that. Except African American soldiers were not. They didn't qualify because of the color of their skin and their race.
That's correct.
People need to know that. Children need to know that. Everybody needs to know that. Why are they hiding? You can't hide it for so long. Just like what happened on January the 6th. They're trying to hide it. They think that's going to sell. People are not going to know what happened on January the 6th in this country. And then you got this guy. This ex-general Flynn, who was the national security advisor, saying that we need to have a coup. The military needs to have a coup in this country, because he has a little bit of connection in the military, and you got some idiots in there that's white supremacists, and he thinks that they can join together and have a coup and just take over this country and put Trump back in president. That happened the other day. He was talking about it, and it was in the paper.
I'll tell you this. I've said this, and I'm going to stand by this to my grave.
Yeah.
Someday we're going to find out that Trump tried to get the military to cooperate on January 6th, but they wouldn't do it. I am as sure of that as anything I've been sure of in my life. I am positive he did that, but they would not go along with it. I'm sure. One day we're going to find that out.
Oh, yeah. There's no two ways, no doubt about it. But they did have a little bit of cooperation with the National Guard when they delayed them.
They did,
the delay they had from going into to help out the Capitol Police. There was a delay there, and that's what caused all those guys to get hurt like they did.
Yes.
They didn't get the support they needed. And that was done out of Washington.
Well, I will tell you, along with what you were talking about, I read a book called The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein.
Mm-hmm.
He goes into extensive detail about how the redlining has deprived the minority community of wealth.
Right.
And he goes and shows some of the various documents that development signed to prohibit black people from being part of the community. And, if you recall, when Bill Russell was trying to find a home in Boston, he got an extremely bad time. And he was a star he was a mega star, and he was having a difficult time getting a home.
Yeah, he was. I remember that story about Bill Russell.
Yes.
Going through it. And now he was one of the the big superstars on the Boston Celtics, and that's how they started their reign of winning all the championships. He was part of that. And yet, all of that, he did all of that for Boston, but yet they still were trying to discriminate against him. And they even broke in his home. I think that when he did get a house, they broke it and they did some damage.
Yeah,
they painted the N word on the wall and everything else. Yeah, they did a lot of.
He harbored.
He put up with a lot of stuff, but he hung in there and he stayed there in Boston with those folks.
Yeah, he harbored some bitterness against Boston for a long time, but that book, if you get a chance, that's a good book. The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein.
Sounds interesting. I think I'll look that up on Amazon. You can look at books.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, man.
All right. That is. I read that book, Cliff, and I could hardly put it down because he details community by community how it all happened. He even shows how the housing projects in some of the major cities turned to slums, because those projects were originally built for white people, and they were maintained by various people that they hired to keep those buildings up to snuff. And when they started building the suburbs and the whites left those communities, they took away those people that maintained the buildings, and they began to decline. But in any event, I don't want to get too far off the traffic, but anyway, let's talk a little bit about African Americans in the military. I just want you to know that African Americans, and I'm proud to say this, have participated in every war to try to preserve the American ideal and the freedoms that Americans enjoy. And for some of you listening, and I want you to, I'm not holding this personally against you, but I just want you to know, for some of you, you came here after we had already been here fighting to protect the American idea, and then you want to turn around and take away our freedom. That's not okay with me, but that's another story. But here's what the first person who is credited as the start of the American Revolution was Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks was a black man who was protesting the treatment by the British when he was shot and killed along with a couple other people. That's pretty interesting. Some of you may or may not know of that, but Crispus Attucks is pretty famous. In 1775, you had the Black Minutemen. And the Minutemen fought in Lexington and Concord as early as April 1775. But in May of that same year, the Committee of Safety of the Massachusetts Legislation presented a resolution about their participation in the war. There's the War of 1812, and black soldiers served in both integrated regiments as well as all black regiments. Many black soldiers served with courage and distinction, both on land and sea. Many others worked as laborers, constructing fortifications and supplying army with food and material for their time. Then in the Civil War, this is important for you to understand, there was blacks on both Union and Confederates. On the Union side, African Americans received $10 a month, and there was a $3 deduction for clothing, so their monthly pay was $7. The white soldiers received $13 a month, and there was no deduction for clothing. So, didn't matter. African American soldiers fought in the Civil War to help form the Union in large numbers. And in World War II, the U.S. war effort was determined to defeat fascism and to defend freedom. For black Americans, freedom in the fullest form was an idea that was desired not only abroad, but on the home front as well. So what I'm trying to get you to understand is when black people joined to fight World War II, they fully expected that their commitment to fighting World War II would enable them to experience freedom as home, since they were fighting to keep freedom for the country. But it didn't happen. And in fact, in one incident, the American soldiers had a fight with the French soldiers because they didn't like the way the French soldiers was treating the African American soldiers, and they felt that that was going to have a major impact on African American soldiers when they came back to the U.S. So that's a little thumb sketch, but I guess the point that I'm trying to make for you is that we participated in every war, and most of the time, when we participated in those wars, we were trying to prove that we were patriotic and did so for acceptance. And this might be hard for you to understand. I think there was a time when I tried very hard to do things that would get people to accept me on the broader spectrum. But at this age, I really don't care whether you accept me or not. I don't even care if you like me or not.
You know, the older I get, the more I feel like that.
Exactly. I just don't, it doesn't matter. You could hate me, long as you don't bother me. It's okay for you to look at me and say you hate me, long as you don't bother me. Because long as you don't bother me, we don't have an issue. You're entitled to those feelings. But, as you grow older, you get more and more comfortable. I'm more comfortable in my skin now than I ever have been, and it's okay. And that is how I feel about that. Now let me give you my next topic, which is, what is a true American? Let me tell you who a true American is. And some of you are probably going to kick the radio when I say this. Al Gore is a true American. Let me tell you why Al Gore is a true American. Al Gore won the popular vote, and he had a legitimate argument to contend for the presidential election. The people in his campaign begged him not to concede, to fight on, because they felt there were several issues at hand that he had in his favor that could change the outcome. Al Gore refused. Al Gore thought the country was more important than his damaged ego or his hurt pride. He surrendered. And not only did he surrender, he then oversaw the electoral results without reservation, without pouting, without withholding his basic responsibilities as the Vice President of the United States. And if you want to talk about somebody that's an American hero, Al Gore was an American hero because he had every right to fight for the presidency, but he found the country more important. Would one of y'all tell that to Donald Trump? Do me a favor. Get in touch with him and tell him how it is to be a true American and accept defeat for the betterment of the country instead of tearing the country apart. That's what Al Gore did. And I have the utmost respect for that man that he did that. Because for those of us that were here, not only was the Chads, but you had that butterfly ballot in Palm Beach County, which was a disaster that was mislabeled so that many votes went to Pat Buchanan that he admitted were not his votes. But didn't matter. Al Gore put the country first. Can you do that? Can you put the country first? Or do you have to win no matter what? Can you put your country, my country, ahead of your own selfish self-interest? Can you do that? Tell me whether or not you can do that. 340-1590. That's 340-1590. I got a little excited there, Cliff, because
it's all right though.
Yeah, I think about that, and I get upset because he really had every legitimate right to argue the point, and he didn't. You know that, right? You remember that?
Yeah, he felt the country was more important.
That's right. He did. And that is an American. That is somebody to look up to. That he did that. He put the country first. And my last subject. I, in the past, have said that I am not in favor of reparations. I changed my mind. I am now in favor of reparations. When I saw the damage and the historical massacre of people in Tulsa, and then, a few weeks ago I told you about the resort in California where they took the black resort from the people. Between those two things, I've changed my mind. We got Jerry on line one. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, a gentleman that's on the air right now.
Yes.
That's you. You and the gentleman on the air are both on the air right now. Yeah.
Okay, all he's doing is dividing race. Cut it out, man. Cut it out. Let it go.
What am I doing? No. I want to hear what he has to say.
Okay.
What am I doing?
All you're doing is causing division.
How am I causing
No,
division?
it's already a division, sir.
Oh.
A very serious one. Real bad one.
How am I causing division?
Let me speak.
I'm listening.
Well, you haven't said one positive thing since you've been on the air.
I haven't said one positive thing?
No, sir. Let it go already, man. Let it go and move on with life.
Buy you some airtime and compete.
Y'all have a great evening. I'm done with you.
Okay.
We done with you, too.
Yeah.
People don't understand that others can hear you in here sounding like well, I'm not going to say it. But if you're going to act like if you're going to sound like, well, I'd just be cool if I were some folks, because some folks just need to chill.
Well, that's his response is very typical.
Yeah, he don't want to hear it.
Right.
Shut up, Rudy.
That's right.
Shut up, Rudy.
That's exactly
not
right.
man enough to say that, but can just come in here and throw shadows around,
That's the whole thing. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
If we don't talk about it,
maybe it didn't happen. Maybe it'll all go away.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
No, that's the way to allow things to go on. That's called, you're actually assisting the problem. Your enablers are out there enabling the problem. And by telling people to shut up and don't tell the truth about anything, well, that's just as bad as everything else we got going wrong in this world today, is the lies, the deception, the obviously blatant deception that it's so wide, it not only covers politics, but it covers religion too. There's so much fake you hear the phrase fake news. You got fake this, fake that, fake, all this fake stuff. And when the truth is spoken, people say, Rudy, you can't say that. But hey, somebody's got to do it.
Listen, I am convinced, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, and Phyllis called up and she was all upset with me. But I am convinced that if there hadn't been a Black Lives Matter movement, I'm not sure Chauvin would have got convicted. And I got ample evidence for that. We watched Rodney King get the crap beat out of him on video, and he got an innocent verdict.
Yeah.
But since then, there has been marches and protests, and what you've done is you raised the consciousness level of people. Listen, let me tell you what this is all about here. I'm not bashing white people. I'm trying to raise your consciousness level so that you understand something beside your world. Because too much of us live in our own little world, in our own little cocoon, and we don't allow information outside of that to come in. So if you listen to me on Wednesday night, my whole purpose is to try to give you another point of view to think. You don't have to agree with me. And a lot of times I see people on the street and they go, you know, I often disagree with you, but you make me think. If I make you think, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to get you to agree with me. I want you to think. I'm trying to penetrate your bubble and give you another trend of thought for you to consider.
You can lead a man to wisdom, but we can't make him think.
Yeah. So if that upsets you,
preference of wisdom.
If that upsets you, I don't apologize for that. There's no apology you're going to get from me for that.
Are you sorry that you have a freedom of speech according to the Constitution?
Because let me tell you something.
You got it.
I'm a people guy. I like all people. All people I like. But I don't like injustice, and I don't like discrimination, and I don't like prejudice. I don't like any of those things right there. And so here's my thoughts I'm saying about reparations. After I saw Tulsa and what those people went through and about how their generational wealth was stripped from them, and I told you a couple of weeks ago about the blacks that owned the resort in California and how that was taken from them, and California has now recognized it and are making some kind of attempt to make a restitution for that. I now think that it is appropriate for reparations, and I never thought I'd say that. I thought that reparations would be too divisive, but I don't think so now.
There was one guy wanted to call and yell at you earlier, and I just simply asked him his name, and he couldn't do it. He just couldn't, just his first name, and so we could introduce him. But no, he'd rather call and holler at us for not taking his call. He didn't give us his name, and we gave him ample time. I mean, gave him plenty of time.
Well, listen, man, you want to call up and give your name. I don't run from anybody. So call up, give your name, and I'll listen to your point of view. You'll get a fair you always will get a fair hearing from me. That's for sure. Even if we disagree, you'll get a fair hearing from me.
John would like to speak to you.
Okay, John, how are you, sir?
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I don't know, about 8-10 minutes ago, I was just going out for dinner, and I heard what you said about former Vice President Al Gore. He was such a good American, he gave up the fight on the election. If it wasn't for the Supreme Court, he would still be fighting. You're trying to rewrite history.
No, sir. No, I'm not trying to rewrite history.
Al Gore, his goodness in his heart, or the Supreme Court?
Well, let's talk about that. The Supreme Court stopped the vote count, didn't stop the process that he was entitled to. Okay, so let me help you let me straighten your facts out for you. I want you to. The Supreme Court stopped the vote count. That's what they stopped. There was a process.
Why did they stop it?
Because they felt that it should be stopped. Now, it doesn't matter why they stopped it. The point that I'm trying to make to you, that was one aspect of a whole issue, which was they stopped the count. That was their right to do that, but there was still a process that was available to him. His lawyers told him it was available to him. His staff told him it was available to him, but he decided that the country was more important than his ego. Now, if you don't think that's true, look it up. Don't take my word for it. Look it up.
Oh man, what the stuff that you're to the audience. You're just trying to rewrite history.
I'm not trying to rewrite history. Look it up.
That guy that answers the phone, right in the beginning, you say the station has no affiliation. He's right up there with you. It's a total joke.
It's called cooperation between citizens.
So wait. So I defy you to look it up. When you look it up, call me back and you'll find out that I was right. I am 100% right about that. They stopped the vote count, but there was additional process available to him that he refused to pursue because he was more concerned about the country. That's the facts. Okay, so I guess you hung up.
I guess he hung up.
Yeah, well, that's the facts, what I told you.
Yeah, people can't handle facts. Facts sometimes hurt feelings because there's a little truth involved.
Well, he doesn't want to.
No, he wants to cover his eyes, to cover his ears, dig a hole in the ground, stick his head in the ground, and if he ignores it all, maybe it'll go away.
Yeah.
But this isn't going away. There are a lot of facts out there, and I think some of us here in the USA need to be ashamed of what is going on still. I mean, the Tulsa thing, that was 100 years ago, Rudy. 100 years. We still have got the same problem. It hasn't helped yet.
Yeah.
Wow.
We got a call there?
Let's see.
Yeah. Well, I will say that, John, Jerry, that was very interesting. But I think if you do your homework, you'll find out that I was correct.
Learning to read would probably help, too. That'll help you study things. Wow, we're down to like 4 minutes to go.
Okay. Yeah, we're down to the last few minutes.
Let me see if he's calmed down enough to be on the air yet. You there still? No, he's not.
Okay.
He can't handle it. He's out.
Oh, somebody was a little upset?
Well, there was a guy that was on. He'd hung up. Then he called back, and, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I understand.
There's a lot of hatred in this world and a lot of anger in this world, and you know what? I don't care.
Well, listen,
I don't care about it.
And you know what? The Al Gore thing is especially painful because if you accept the fact of what Al Gore did, then you have to accept the fact that the way the president acted was inappropriate and childish, because it was both of those things.
Yeah.
He left, all kinds of little things that he did that were just so infantile, would not allow the portrait of Obama to be hung up in the White House. Nobody else had ever done that.
You realize how noble it was of Al Gore to put the country ahead of his own agenda.
Absolutely.
And he did. He had the right to want to recount, and he had these resources available to him, and he just chose not to.
Absolutely, he did.
Wow.
But people, that's hard. That's a hard pill for people to swallow, because that damages their hero.
Yeah.
If you accept the fact that Al Gore stepped aside when he had additional remedies to him to fight for the presidency, then that damages your hero. So that's what Jerry's all bent out of shape about. Don't say that about Al Gore, because it's not true. Well, it is true, but you don't want it to be true.
Yeah, just because you don't want it to be true does not remove truth from truth.
Yes, they did, but they did stop the count. That part is true.
I think our serious pursuit of truth has kind of really gone south.
It is.
If we could just focus on truth just once, it would make a whole lot of difference in everything.
I think that's a problem. I never thought that I'd see a problem the way that is developed now.
Yeah.
Truth is just unimportant. It's just win. No matter how you win, just win. It's become that, and it doesn't care if I cheat, if I manipulate, doesn't matter. I just got to win at the end of the day, And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it again and again until you get it. The concept of our democracy is the person with the best ideas wins. You don't offer any ideas to the public. How you going to win? There's only one way to win if you don't have ideas. You got to cheat. Come up with some ideas. Talk about something that reaches the soul and the heart of the American people, and you win. And I applaud you if you can do that. Don't cheat. Don't take my vote. I'd like to thank you so much for listening to the African American Scene. And I'm down off my soapbox now. God bless and be safe. And I will see you next week right here on Wednesday for the African American Scene.
You can check out the archives and binge watch the African American Scene. Thousands of episodes at WPSLTV.com. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast on Google Home, Alexa, and the TuneIn app on your smartphone. Time right now is 7 o'clock.